Desire is not evil, but it must be ordered toward beauty, not possession. What God made good, sin can distort but never destroy. We don't talk about it, but almost everyone wrestles with it. But isn't this too much emphasis on a private matter? Masturbation. A word whispered, a habit hidden, a guilt that sticks. Though often seen as a man's struggle, many women wrestle here too, quietly, without language or support. But the battle is shared, and so is the mercy. But what does the church actually teach? And more importantly, what's going on in the soul behind the act? Some will say, this is too small to be a sin. But the church speaks to it not because it obsesses over control, but because it cares about freedom. Even small habits shape eternal souls. Let's talk about it. The Catechism of the Catholic Church says this: both the deliberate use of the sexual faculty, for whatever reason, outside of marriage and outside of the procreative and unitive purpose is morally disordered. Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2352. Translation? Masturbation is considered a grave matter. It separates sexual pleasure from its full meaning, procreation and union. Sex in Catholic theology isn't just physical, it's covenantal. It belongs within a gift of self that is permanent, faithful and fruitful. So yes, objectively it is sinful, but that's not the end of the teaching. Because the church is not just a judge, it's a physician, and it knows there's always more to the story. Mortal sin requires three things: grave matter, full knowledge, deliberate consent. So is every act of masturbation a mortal sin? Not necessarily, because full freedom isn't always present. There may be stress, compulsion, isolation, anxiety, loneliness. Habit can reduce culpability, though not eliminate it. God sees the context, he sees the heart. Still, the church doesn't call masturbation okay, it calls it understandable and healable. As Aquinas warned, vice is not simply error, it is the deformation of the will, a habit that makes the soul less free. What begins as indulgence often becomes inertia, and what feels private soon erodes the public good. Why do we do it? Because we're bored, because we're tired, because we're lonely, because desire doesn't disappear even when it's denied. Sometimes it's about pleasure, sometimes it's about power, sometimes it's about pain. Vice thrives in isolation because it feeds on unexamined desire. Left unchallenged, it not only weakens character, it unteaches virtue. And for many, especially those carrying same-sex attraction or unfulfilled longing, it becomes a private act meant to relieve a deeper ache, but it can isolate. Over time, it twists. And what starts as comfort can become a cage. Even saints are tempted. Let's hear the story of Saint Mary of Egypt next. She struggled with lust so deeply, she fled to the desert and found God not in perfection, but perseverance.
And only then, with great difficulty, it began to dawn on me. And I began to understand the reason why I was prevented from being admitted to see the life-giving cross. The word of salvation gently touched the eyes of my heart and revealed to me that it was my unclean life which barred the entrance to me. I began to weep and lament and beat my breast and to sigh from the depths of my heart. And so I stood weeping when I saw above me the icon of the Most Holy Mother of God.
The sex drive is not a glitch, it's not a punishment, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's part of what makes you human, alive, embodied, real. God gave it. Nature refined it. It draws us toward union and creation. But when there's no clear place to give that drive, it doesn't go quiet, it presses in. This is not a failure of will, this is the cross of biology. Celibacy isn't hard because we don't understand sex. It's hard because we understand it deeply and choose every day to channel it, not erase it. That tension, it's not shameful, it's sacred. For some, the body is not a site of longing, but of trauma. If you've experienced sexual, physical, or emotional abuse inwardly or outwardly, your struggle may look different. God sees that too. The body is not a source of shame, it is the form God himself chose to enter. David stood unarmored, not because he lacked strength, but because he trusted the Lord to meet him in his weakness. If you're gay and Catholic, your choices can feel brutal. Masturbation or sex, silence or shame. You may not even know where celibacy begins, only that desire is strong and the church feels distant. But the church doesn't ask you to kill your longing. It asks you to transfigure it, to turn eros toward communion, not consumption. It's not easy and it's not fast. But it's not hopeless. The church doesn't hate pleasure, it just insists that pleasure serve love, not replace it. The church doesn't fear the body, it calls it sacred because it sings. The ancient philosophers did not ignore lust because they lacked imagination. They feared it because they knew ungoverned appetites dissolve both the soul and the city. Masturbation may seem harmless, but it teaches us something over time. That intimacy is private, that connection is transactional, that the body is for pleasure, not gift. Eventually it forms us, it trains us not for relationship but for escape. Lust isn't just about visuals, it's about direction. It curves the soul inward, and that's why it leaves us emptier, not fuller. Lust is not merely a misuse of the body, it's a miseducation of the heart. It teaches us to seek escape, not communion, consumption, not covenant. Moral effort, rightly understood, is not repression but resistance. Not to desire, but to its distortion. The soul cannot flourish while enslaved to impulses it no longer examines. Start here. Confess it, not in fear, but in faith. Track when and why it happens. Learn your own pattern. Build routines that reduce idle time and late-night spirals. Fast, pray, exercise, create. Surround yourself with people who know your struggle, and remember, if you fall, rise again and again. Holiness isn't about never failing, it's about never quitting. Temptation is not failure, only surrender is. And even then, there is mercy. What if I never stop? Then you keep returning, keep fighting, keep letting God love you through it. He does not abandon the tempted. He doesn't flinch from your weakness, not because you're disgusting, but because you're sacred. Even Christ wrestled in the garden, sweating blood, begging for another way. But he stayed. So can you. Masturbation is not your identity, it's not your worth, it's a wound, and he is a healer. Grace is not shocked by your struggle, it's shaped to meet it. Let that truth be your starting place. Desire doesn't damn us, it directs us if we dare to steer it homeward. This is the battle no one sees, but it is holy, because what you do with your body shapes your soul. Temptation is not failure. Only surrender is. Desire doesn't damn us, it directs us if we dare to steer it homeward. And the soul is worth fighting for. You're not dirty, you're not unlovable, you are not disqualified. You are called, even in the struggle, especially in the struggle. At the Renaissance Spirit, we believe faith should speak to real struggles. The Church asks us to confess, not to exclude us, but to prepare us for communion. Because the Eucharist is not for the perfect, it's for the penitent, the persistent, and the returning. We study history, theology, justice, sexuality, art, and the ache of being human because holiness doesn't skip the flesh. It sanctifies it. You're not alone in this war, and it is not over. You are not weak for wrestling. You are strong for staying, and that too is a kind of sainthood. If you feel trapped, find a spiritual director or a trusted priest. You're not too broken to be guided. Download the accompanying guide, Reaching to God When You're Triggered. Using your hands for prayer now. Don't mistake the wound for the verdict. There is still light, and you are still loved. Where there is struggle, there is hope, and where there is hope, there is holiness being born. St. Ambrose, your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. Therefore glorify God in your body. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 and 20.